Hello, this is Ian Campbell, and this is my IOP for Campus Racism by Nikki Giovanni. And I want to talk about reading this from a standpoint of race and how Miss Giovanni doesn't necessarily mean to, but she addresses every race, not just the African Americans. And we'll start with the little bit of background information she gives about herself. She's a professor of English at Virginia Tech. She's tenured, so she has that position for life. And Virginia Tech is a primarily white campus, and she's African American. So that's where she's coming from. She has different experiences than you or I growing up as an African American, and that shapes her thoughts. And the first thing I want to say is that when she's addressing just the African Americans, she is addressing everyone because a lot of the points she makes don't just apply to black people, they apply to everybody. And I want to start with where she's talking about the difference between prison and college. And we all know that prison is bad and college is good. That's generally how we grow up. You don't necessarily grow up and you're told, "Hey Johnny, I want you to go to prison when you grow up." That's not what you're told. No matter where you grow up, your parents generally, now I say generally because I know there are some situations where children who grow up in the ghetto are raised to be drug peddlers or criminals, but generally, your parents raise you to peak beyond where they peaked. They want a better life for you than what they had. And generally, that's going to college, getting a nice paying job, getting married, having great kids, and so on and so on. But the difference between prison and college, what Miss Giovanni says, is that college is basically 4 years of living up to your potential, whereas prison is 4 years of potential wasted. Because if you get out of prison after, say, 4 years, then that's on your record and that affects the rest of your life. You're less likely to be selected for a job. You're less likely to make new friends when they find out that you've been in prison. And overall, your life just gets a lot harder. But if you go to college for those 4 years and you graduate with whatever degree, you're more likely to get a job. You're more likely to succeed in life. And she's basically saying that you should go to college or else you're going to waste the rest of your life. That's kind of how I sum up that area. And then she decides to go into kind of rules to help these African American students with their college life. And this is where, like, literally, this applies to everybody. So the rules are go to class, meet your professors, do assignments on time, go back to see your professor, understand that there will be professors that do not like you, don't defeat yourself, participate in some campus activities. That's how every student should live their life. Those are extremely good rules that no matter if you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Indian, no matter what your background is, when you're at high school, middle school, elementary school, college, grad school, you follow those rules. Now, the only thing that's different throughout those levels is colleges have professors, everything before that is teachers. But you should always go to class, do your work, understand that there will be people not just at school but in life that don't like you, and you can't change that. You can't, well, however they think about you, you can try and make it better. You could try and make them not like you as much, but you can't force someone to love you. So these rules don't just apply to her targeted audience, which is the African Americans, it applies to everybody. And then next she starts going on to common questions that African Americans ask to college and common responses that you should give to them if you're asked these questions. And this is where I start to disagree with Miss Giovanni, because some of the questions that are examples, yeah, they're pretty stupid and the witty responses are good, but other questions I feel like are warranted and can open a conversation with anybody who wants to have the conversation. Like the question where it's like, why are there so many scholarships for minority students? That's a valid question because there's supposed to be equal opportunity for everybody to go to college, and there's supposed to be opportunity that comes out of that equality of college. And so it's a valid question. Why aren't there just equal scholarships for every ethnicity or sex? That's not a stupid question that should be thrown away. And her basic response to that is because they wouldn't give my great grandparents their 40 acres in the mule. And I feel like that's a very large problem when it comes to this whole campus racism thing, is that so many people get held up on the past and they don't understand that what their great grandparents did, that's not them. They don't need to keep holding on to that and make that a negative. They could put that behind them and just push forward and make their pushing forward a positive. And she continues with the comments and the responses, and as I said, some of them are stupid, some of them are not as stupid. Like, this is just an insensitive comment. When I see a group of black people on campus, it's really intimidating. I don't understand why someone would say that to another person. That's just really low. And the response to that is, I understand what you mean. I'm frightened when I see white students congregating. That's a proper response if someone actually has the audacity to walk up to you and say that they get frightened when they see a group of people. That's racism. But what I said earlier about opening the discussion about scholarships, that's not necessarily racist. That's just opening a dialogue. And she ends overall talking about college is a little like playing growing up, and you coming into your own during that and trying to practice what you want to be, and you have a chance to act like that in college so you can make your future at college. But in that last little paragraph, she also says, if you take the racial world on your shoulders, you will not get the job done. And that's the truest statement in this whole piece, because a lot of people think that they can fight any fight by themselves, but anybody who's fought a war knows that you can't do it alone. And so if one African American student tries to take on his college's racist problem, they're going to fail. But if they get many people and open the dialogue and fix whatever problems they have at college, they will succeed. It'll be hard. It will take time. It's not a guarantee, but they should be able to succeed if they work together and they solve the problems instead of attacking. And that's one thing that I think Ms. Giovanni kind of fails to mention, is not blowing up at the slightest sign of disagreement between the races about issues, because that's the biggest problem, is people are way too quick to blow up. So if they open the dialogue, they go to college, they get their degree, and they have a good life, but they don't blow up, then everything can be okay, and not nothing, but it'll be better.